Is 40mm the new 50mm? Is 40mm the new 35mm? Or is 40mm simply a focal length all of its own and stands proud because of that? Well, that's what I want to discuss in this video with a new lens, a new 40mm lens. And here's some footage of me trying it out on the Yorkshire coast. So I currently have two cameras that shoot with a 40mm focal length, the Ricoh GR3X, and for film, the Olympus 35RC. Well, this one is actually 42mm focal length, but that's near enough, before one of you decides to add your correction in the comments. This focal length therefore sits nicely between my favourite 35mm and my second favourite focal length, 50mm. It covers both, or tries to, for an ideal one camera, one lens combo for general shooting that's close to our own field of vision. Well, I think that's the idea anyway. Now, the last 40mm changeable lens for digital I owned, or should I say tried, was the Olympus 20mm f1.4, which sadly I was a little bit disappointed with, and in a way led to me selling the Olympus system that I had. Now, however, I'm a Fuji user, and obviously a much better photographer because of that. But I don't currently have a 40mm lens for these cameras. These 40mm focal length lenses are often quite small and compact, pancake type lenses, and therefore have the appeal of making the camera seem smaller and more pocketable, with this one focal length attached. So Fuji do make a 40mm lens, a lens I think that is classed as a pancake version. I don't own this lens though, and even if I did want to, for some reason this lens, this focal length, has become very popular of late, and therefore the lens is very hard to come by. I've actually seen it sold on the second-hand market for more than the recommended new retail price, which of course is ridiculous. But even if I could get one of these lenses, I'm not sure I would buy one. I'm not overly keen on its design. I'm not keen on its external focusing, as in the lens barrel moves in and out when it focuses, rather than this being all internal, which I presume is due to its small size. But I do fancy having a lens of this focal length. The 40mm that I did own on my very first Micro Four Thirds camera, which was the very old 20mm Panasonic equivalent, that was wonderfully small, wonderfully sharp, but damn noisy. That lens did make for an ideal one camera, one lens combo, and I remember using it a lot, especially during the pandemic lockdowns. So if I don't want the Fuji version, what's my alternative? Well, TTArtisan do one, but the reviews on that suggest it's not that great, not the best quality, despite or maybe because of its very low price. If you want cheap, then it's great. especially when you consider the Fuji version is at least £400. The TTArtisan is a winner there then. You do have to consider that the TTArtisan is in fact a manual focus lens, so no autofocus. But if you're fine with that, then there is an alternative to that one. This one, the Voigtlander Ultron 27mm f2. Now this one has been kindly loaned to me by Flaghead Photographic, who are the UK importers of these lenses, and they sent me a copy so I could try it for a few weeks and decide if this is the 40mm version for me. The manual focus was a concern for me, well, sort of. Of course, all my other Fuji lenses are autofocus, and I've got used to having autofocus on my digital cameras. However, I am shooting film again, and all my lenses for this medium are manual focus. These don't concern me or trouble me by being manual focus, it's just a different way to work. Slower maybe, but in most cases that's a good thing. Now of course, all my Fuji lenses are also manual focus if I want them to be, but I never really use them that way, unless on the rare occasion I'm needing to override the autofocus for any reason. But having a lens that is manual focus by default with no other choice is a different matter, and I understand this is not for everyone. But I guess having used manual film cameras for the last few years, with a goal to maybe replacing the Nikon FM2 that I currently have next year with a more famous manual focus camera, the idea of a manual focus 40mm lens is now more appealing. So here's me using this Voigtlander on a recent shoot in Gaul. So, having used this lens for a few weeks now, will I buy one? Well, before I answer that, I want to just tell you about my new ebook, Photography Rules. This is another compilation of my last series of e-guides from my E6 subscription, looking at photography rules. 26 rules to adhere to, or just ignore, and the reason why. I go through each one and offer advice on how I interpret those often talked about rules in photography, from cropping your images to adding blur, from getting close to your subject to being open to the idea of chance. These rules, if interpreted as intended, will improve your photography. So grab yourself a copy of this new ebook of mine and see if the rules can change your photography. You can purchase this direct from my website, link in the description below. So, as I said, will I buy this lens? Well, I did enjoy using it. The Fuji X-T5 has a range of focusing aids so that manual focusing is a pleasant experience. Features such as zoomed in view for focus checking or focus peaking, or even a combination of standard view and zoomed in view in the viewfinder. Or just using zone focusing, be that setting the lens just off infinity, which is another quick method, which is tried and tested and works. It's a shame this lens doesn't really work well on my X Pro 2 though, as this older camera can't communicate with the lens. You need an X Pro 3 to achieve that. As to me, it's a lens that would suit this camera even better. So using these various focusing techniques, my hit rate was pretty good then, but I did end up with some slightly soft out of focus results. I'm going to blame that on the X-T5's viewfinder though, which isn't as high res as it could be. The lens itself has great image quality, a little soft wide open with some fringing maybe, but overall very pleasing. And here is a few results that I shot in York, where I wandered around shooting with the lens wide open at f2 and f2.8. No B-roll for this, just the results to show you. Now this lens's tiny size does make using a filter holder a little tricky however, but I guess that won't be an issue for everyone. I love the focus scale on it, and I love the position of the focus tab, and it does need that as the focusing ring is far too narrow to use otherwise. On the recent Leica Summicron that I borrowed a few weeks ago, I actually found that the tab on that was positioned too far round for me. The lens has got a nice weight to it, so it feels well made and solid. My only fault is that despite everything, my go-to still is 35mm rather than 40, but you soon get used to a focal length when out, whatever that is. You get used to that field of view and seeing in that field of view. Overall then, it was just a nice lens to use. As a 40mm focal length, as an alternative to Fuji's own pancake version, I'm considering it. Now, I said in a recent review of the Keck hot shoe mounted light meter that I thought the art of exposure is perhaps being lost. If our digital cameras get more sophisticated, the art of composition could be lost too, as our cameras take over this job for us as well. The art of manual focusing in digital has been lost in many ways, and it's only those choosing to use manual focus lenses, often by adapting older lenses, that it's keeping the art, the skill alive. It does take some practice though. This lens, from a manufacturer who dedicates themselves to making manual focus lenses, especially for a certain well-known luxury camera brand, is now offering this old school approach to digital users. And I for one, I think I want to embrace that. So this lens just might end up being on my shopping list, because sometimes a unique focal length, a single choice of lens which offers something different, can make your photography exciting again, give it a shake up, just inspire you to take more pictures. Voigtlander, I think you've done your job here then. I'll see you next time.